and welcome. I'm Karen Panetta, and I'm the IEEE Awards Board Chair. Today, we're here to celebrate the 2022 IEEE Haraden Pratt Award, sponsored by the IEEE Foundation to Joseph Lillie. So, Joe, congratulations.
Thank you, Karen. It's an honor.
And joining us here is the president of the IEEE Foundation, Ralph Ford.
Thanks, Karen. And Joe, it is a great pleasure to congratulate you on winning this very prestigious award that is sponsored by the foundation, but as we know, it's for outstanding service to IEEE and its volunteers. And you've had a great impact on the organization, so congratulations.
So, yeah, thanks, Ralph. You know, one thing to mention is the teamwork, and today I really represent a team, and that's a team of IEEE volunteers and staff that all work together. And again, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited because I have personally benefited from Joe's mentorship. But we're going to talk a lot about what you're getting this award for, Joe. But I first want to talk about how you're an engineer and you get involved in investments and leadership for developing membership models. Can you connect the pieces? How did you get from engineering to this?
Well, the engineering part was I wound up in a management position with what was at the time South Central Bell, which became Bell South and is now part of AT&T. Actually, it started off AT&T and we're back AT&T, so we made a full circle there. But my leadership at the company encouraged me to get involved. They didn't specifically say IEEE, but they wanted everyone involved in something, and IEEE was a natural for me. The finance piece and being the treasurer of IEEE and the IEEE Foundation, numbers were always easy for me. It's kind of a family thing. I didn't mention this earlier, but when my dad passed away several years ago, I found his old high school report cards. The only A's he made were in math. And he gave it to his 7 kids. So
run to the family.
So math, you know, I actually in my undergraduate studies, I took an extra math course to raise my grade point average because I knew I could make an A in math. And it didn't come without studying. It didn't come without hard work, but the fundamentals were there from the math.
I just got to that that's the counter of all other engineering programs. The students take liberal arts courses to raise the GPA. So that's fabulous. Joe, one of the things that we talked about was, you know, your path. You almost were not an engineer. Can you talk about what happened there?
Yeah, after my first year of college, you know, the school I graduated from had a reputation as a party school. One of the local establishments was the #1 seller of draft Budweiser beer in the world. And I spent a little bit too much time there. And my grades weren't too well, and I wanted to change my major. So I went and met with my advisor, and he filled out the paperwork. No questions asked. He just, you know, oh, you want to change your major here? And he filled out a bunch of cards and gave them to me and told me to go to the freshman office. I get there was a long line. I got tired of waiting. Bottom line is I tore up the cards and threw them away and wound up finishing in electrical engineering. So I started there, never changed my major. And, you know, once I realized that it was more than a party school, I realized there was a serious part to college. It changed a lot. Still had fun, still partied a lot, but not quite as much, and found, I believe, the right balance between study and having a good time in college.
See, I think it's so inspiring. One of the biggest things young people have is that they think they have to be perfect at everything, and if they're not getting good grades, you know, goodbye to engineering. And I think you've talked about that. You know what? It's a balance, and it's coming to what you really want to do and that determination. So we are super grateful that you ripped up those cards. The other thing that you mentioned was that your advisor didn't really, no questions asked. There was no mentorship in the sense that, hey, why do you want to do this to keep people in? So you yourself have been a great mentor to many number of us. Can you talk about how even in your companies and all these new IEEE meetings, when you enter, you talked about how you engage to bring people together so that we can build better teams?
Yeah, what I realized early in my telephone career was that you have to get everyone involved. And I can remember, new employees coming on and they're sitting in a meeting and basically they're just sitting in a meeting. And that's not what we want. We want people involved. So I can remember pulling people aside during break and stuff and actually encouraging them to speak up. And then calling on them in the meeting when I was able to chair a meeting. Now I'll tell you, when I chair a webinar or a webcast, I call the roll every time there's an issue. And we go down and everyone is expected to participate. Not necessarily to put anyone on the spot, but to get them participating. And that's the way, that's the way I learned at work. And then I was able to apply that to IEEE meetings. You go to an IEEE meeting, there's someone you never met before. The idea was to go and meet them and find out what their interests are, and let's get them involved.
And what I love about that is that's a practice that I see now in all my meetings, and where the world is really trying to have diversity, inclusive, and have all voices heard. It actually helps to say, I'm giving you an opportunity just to give your input, to hear what you have to say. So I call that the Joe Lillie method. And I all my meetings, even on campus.
Let's give my dad a little more credit there too, and my mom, because they encouraged all 7 of us kids to get involved and do something different.
That's great.
Joe, I'd add to that as well. When I first started to get highly involved in IEEE, and I was on the board, and you were vice president of MGA, you were very intimidating to me, whether you realize it or not. I had very little experience. Anyways, I do remember some of the brainstorming sessions when I was a very new director. I'm naturally pretty quiet. You did that, and that meant a lot to me. You may not remember, and I saw you do that with a whole lot of others. So that's definitely a legacy that you have in the IEEE.
And here I thought I was special, that he only did it.
I think it's important. See, there's consistency. He does this across the board. And
That's right.
Karen, you are right. You are special, but we have a lot of special people. Everyone is special.
And I think that really is what has helped, keep members like myself engaged, is feeling that value. And, everybody always feels that their company or their institution is going to be doing their career mentoring. I learned everything I know about managing money from IEEE and budgets and stuff like that. So, Joe, can you talk a little bit about how investments and how you even connect these things? What got you interested in investments, or especially for IEEE? What was so attractive to you about all these things?
Well, it all goes back to the numbers, as I mentioned earlier, math. If it was a numbers problem, there was a solution and I could figure it out. That doesn't make me a good investor, but it says we need to watch our investments. I kind of stumbled into the financial part of IEEE a little bit. I was always interested. I mentioned in earlier conversation, my wife was in the accounting area and she worked in that area, and we opened up a little accounting business for a little while on our own. We did well with that. And that introduced me to the fact that you need to properly look after other people's funds, even though they're not yours, you're responsible for them. And I also learned to, use generated reports to look at what's going on. That's the easy thing about investments, is that there is reporting. Now, reporting doesn't guarantee the future, but if you're not looking at what's going on currently in the recent past, you're not paying attention. The other thing is it boils back to teamwork. From an IEEE investment standpoint, we put together this investment committee, group of professionals who are not necessarily IEEE members. For the most part, they are not IEEE members. But us, IEEE being a nonprofit, they give us their time. So again, it's leaning on others. Everyone has a focus point, and it's to get all those focus points together. And that's the beauty of IEEE. We bring a lot of diversity to the table. and it's to get that diversity on the table to where we can be a better organization because of that diversity.
And to bring up diversity, I think it's really important to mention that I was the Women in Engineering chair of the committee. Joe was instrumental in helping us to lead us to a path to get our own governance. And that really meant that we got to vote in our own leadership. We had our own say. We get to write our own laws and forge our own pathway and have the diversity of our populations really heard. So Joe, thank you so much for that. But you know that it did not come easily. These changes you mentioned, you said, even though it's the right thing to do, it doesn't always come easy.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how you build consensus and get people on board? Because that's a leadership skill that, we all need.
Well, let me say a little bit more about diversity first. I mentioned I have 3 brothers. I also have 3 sisters. So we had diversity. The 4 boys could not outvote the 3 girls. And they couldn't outvote us either. You had to work a consensus. And that's important. It was important in our family, and it's important to IEEE. You have all these views, but you have to listen to everyone. But at the end, you have to make a decision, because not making a decision is always the wrong decision. So I may have lost the trend of the question, but the bottom line is with IEEE, we're an international organization, and we're a team. I picked up the tagline when I ran for president one of the times. I was a candidate for IEEE president twice, and I picked up the term. My phone's talking back to me. I picked up the term Team IEEE, and that's important because we are a team, and when we lose that focus, we're losing what we're capable of doing.
That's amazing. Ralph, can you talk more about the foundation and Joe's contributions from your perspective?
I'd be happy to. So, Joe, one of the things I recall, and we all know about you, is that you love finances, right? You were treasurer of the IEEE. And I mean, you were there in some really tricky times in the financial crises that we faced in the past 2 decades. And I'd just love to hear some of your thoughts around, how you managed through that. And that was it was very tricky, and you had an outsized impact there.
Well, when things get tough, you really have to determine your priorities. And then we over time we did cut some programs. It's not easy, but you know what? You have to explain to people why you're cutting the program, and you're not cutting the people. You're not cutting the people, and you're not cutting their potential impact, but you're just limiting the funding that you can give to the program at that point in time. Doesn't mean it's a bad program. And we went through some of that. I can remember sitting in meetings, and we've got this $100 million of request, and we only have $90 million. So what's the 10 million that's not going to come out? And you go through and you listen to people. You listen to people give input, and you put things in priority order. And if you try to do everything suffers, because just to take 10% out of everything doesn't solve the problem, because you got some potentially successful programs that you just cut. So you really have to cut entire programs, in my opinion, and that's what we did. Right or wrong, that's what we did, and it seems to have served IEEE well, because most of those programs that we cut were able to come back at a future time and get funding. They were just limited in a particular year. We had some bad years. I can remember when the IEEE Long-Term Investment Fund was $80 million. I'll get to the punchline right now. It's about $800 million now. So, we went from 80 million to 800 million. And we did that by properly managing the piece parts, and not, and properly managing the budgets on a yearly basis. We have now a program where when we put the annual budget of IEEE together, we're looking for a 2.5% surplus. And so we have 800 million, but we're still looking for a surplus in the operations budget. That's correct. Because when you start running deficits, it's hard to turn them off. But if you're running a small surplus, you're not having the deficits, and then things can grow. So anyway, it's been a good trip, and it continues to be a good trip. But again, it's a team. It's a team effort. It's team IEEE. It's team of staff and volunteers working together and coming up with common objectives, common priorities, and moving toward those common objectives and priorities.
I know you just heard 80 million to 800 million. They heard that, and they're going to say, I want this guy on my team, because, you know, every startup, every entrepreneur, every board wants somebody like you, Joe, on there. So if you're, you know, so I apologize if our audience now besieges you with requests afterwards. You know, so make a compelling argument if you want Joe Lillie on your board. Joe, can you talk a little bit about like advice for young people, right out of school? If you know, you talked about not having to get all the A's, not having to get everything right the first time. What kind of advice would you have for young folks?
Well, the other advice is to focus on the non-technical skills. You know, as engineers, we're trying to think of the technical stuff, but there's the non-technical aspect. You know, good communication skills, being aware of your surroundings, being able to make good presentations, being able to write proposals such that you can get approval to proposals and then get funding for those proposals. So it's not just the technical ability, it's the non-technical stuff that to me a young person needs to be aware of, and to get involved in organizations. You know, IEEE is one, and IEEE is an important one to us here, but there are other organizations that individuals can get involved in that can help them with those non-technical skills. What I always tell the young kids is get involved in IEEE and make your mistakes at IEEE. And therefore, when you get into the work environment, you've learned from that mistake you made at IEEE, and you don't have to make it again at the work environment.
And you've used somebody else's money.
And you use somebody else's money to do it. Use our money. Yeah, but and build that network. It's the network that can get you through the hard times. You know, call on other people, ask for other people's help. Don't be scared to do that. And make the best grade you can in the technical arena, but also work on that non-technical stuff that can help you be successful. Look, when we had to reduce the workforce in my former employees with Bell South, we never looked at technical ability or the lack of technical ability to reduce the workforce. We always looked at the application of the non-technical skills. Is this person a good team player? Is this person a good presenter? Is this person a good writer? Those are the things that we used. And when the answer to those questions were no, those are the ones we terminated. We never said, is this person a good engineer? That wasn't a question. Are they a good communicator was the question. Answer, no, we don't need them anymore because we expect them to be a good communicator. Anyway.
Application, some profound insight on you know, people's applications and how designers today or young people have to think about whatever they're designing.
Yeah, I tell my research friends that what my team did at Bell South is we deployed their research. We actually put it where we could use it, where the communities could use it, and that's what working in the telephone company we did. We took the research that came out of the labs into products, and then we put those products to work. You broke up a little bit when you were asking the question, so I may have missed a little bit of the
question about young people developing applications today. What do they have to worry about?
Yeah, they need to worry about the misuse, the potential misuse of a technology, of an application. When they're developing something, it's not just what they plan to do with that particular product or that particular technology. You need to be aware of the misuse. I mentioned earlier, it's a fine line between the proper use of something and the misuse of something. we hear a lot about that on the news today. We need to be, even with social media, as good as social media is, it's got its negative side. It's got its bad side. We need to be aware of those things. And I think young people need to really be looking at that. In anything that they're developing today, be aware that with all the good you're going to do, be aware that someone potentially can take that and use it in the wrong direction.
Thank you.
I would love to hear about your family, the impact of IEEE on your family. And I think you've got a couple of children who went on to become engineers. So
Yeah, thanks, Ralph. You always allow me to brag about that stuff. I actually first have to start. I have an older brother who's also an electrical engineer. He's got a PhD in computer science, spent a career in the Air Force. And that was kind of who I looked up to, why I went into electrical engineering. But I was fortunate, my wife and I are fortunate that we have two children, both electrical engineers. Our son, I guess I can get a commercial in there. Our son works for a little company called Avaya. He's a director over Avaya, directing the sales force of the Avaya sales engineers. Our daughter works for another small company called AT&T, and she's a director over the cellular deployments for Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Matter of fact, last night she was at the basketball game making sure the cell system worked right. I understand on the Friday they had issues. They solved them on the Saturday they had the issues. They were solved for the championship game last night. So it's fun to see the kids working in the same field that I was fortunate to work in. A matter of fact, if I was still working for AT&T today, my daughter would be my boss.
That is actually really inspiring to hear. Most women attribute their parents, especially their dads, to getting them into engineering, which, and so you mentioned you have two children, they're both engineers. So do you attribute that to you?
My daughter did give me credit to her going into engineering. It's in her senior college yearbook that someone asked, the question was, why are you an engineer? She said, well, my dad helped me make that decision, and I'm glad he did, something to that effect.
That's awesome. And Ralph, what do you see for the future of the foundation? Where are we going to get more Joe Lillies?
Well, there are no more Joe Lillies, exactly. But, it is people like Joe who inspire others. And it really does make a difference. What you hear from Joe is the impact that IEEE has had. And I think we can all speak to it. It's been a place for us all to learn and grow, impact our careers. And that's the sort of passion that drives people to the foundation and makes them, think about their philanthropy and leaving a legacy. So I'll say people hearing and seeing this today, it's a big deal. It's really important.
Thank you. And just so you know, the foundation is our sponsor for this award, and to be able to recognize someone who's made such a profound impact. Everything we do at IEEE is called, impacting humanity. And Joe has not just impacted IEEE as an organization, but all the young people and folks like me that he's mentored along the way and taught leadership skills that have helped propel all of our careers. So Joe, thank you so much for all of that. I think that, we can't say enough about all you've done. And the next question I have is, what's the next adventure you have?
Well, first off, there's Ralph mentioned there's no more Joe Lillies. Well, there's Ralph Fords and there's Karen Panettas. And what I see as my challenge now is to keep developing people. The first ones I'm focused on are the grandkids, but it's other, when I get opportunities to speak to student groups, I'll take advantage of that and encourage them. And it's not, education is important. Engineering is important to me. It's important to us, but education is important to everyone. And it doesn't matter exactly what your career or what your education path is. The point is to pursue it and to complete that education. And when do you complete education? I don't know. You know, there was 25 years between my undergraduate and my master's degree. So you never finish. You just keep going. What do I do next? I don't know. I'm still on the finance committee. Depending on what happens to the current treasurer, I may or may not get another year on the finance committee, but there are several committees. You know, I'm on about 4 IEEE conference calls a day. I'm sorry, a week. And my wife says, I thought you were finished with IEEE. And that's when I explained to her, you never finish with IEEE. You just keep going.
And I think that's a good way to put it, is we're never done. Just like you said, we're never done learning. And I think that in IEEE, we always continue to learn. And I think that it's so important for young people to understand that it's not just about what you get out of IEEE, but what you give back and how that leaves a legacy and essentially enriches everybody, not just yourself. So I truly am so grateful for all your mentorship. I look forward to all the work that you're going to do with me in the future, because I'm definitely going to be knocking on your door again. And I hope Ralph, the foundation has benefited greatly from Joe's contributions, and I hope that you're not going to let him go either. You're going to keep him busy. We
are not, and I certainly, my ears perked up when I heard him say that you never leave IEEE, and got more capacity to help out. One final reflection, that I would like to make is that, all of us would say it has been a true honor and pleasure, and we're just privileged to work with people like Joe, privileged to work with you, Joe, and I think you said it really well. That then inspires people, all of us, to get involved and keep it going. And we're really looking towards the future generations and the impact that we have. So, on behalf of the foundation, on behalf of everybody, a very, very sincere thank you.
Well, and it's a team effort. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I get to get up there and accept the award, but there's a big team behind me. And none of this would have been possible without the team. We all have ideas, but it's implementing those that once you see an idea implemented, you can say, well, look what we accomplished. It's not it's what we accomplished, because that's what's important. And I see a lot of that at IEEE, the we and the team, and that's very important, and that's what makes us successful, I believe. So I want to say that we look forward to seeing you with the IEEE team and San Diego to celebrate this wonderful award with you. And thank you so much for being with us here today. And thank you to the IEEE Foundation and President Ralph Ford for joining us and for their continued sponsorship of this medal. So Joe, we'll see you at San Diego, and thank you again. And for those of you that are out there, please join us in San Diego and you'll get to meet Joe in person. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Good deal. I'll try to bring a little Tabasco for some people. There you go. For everyone. Bye.